Hey guys, so we're back with another video. So we just got done with the Asafa Powell and his Legacy Olympics video. Now we're back with a new video. Now this video was something I really wanted to talk about, and I feel as if it's something that I feel as if the Naruto animation was lacking. I feel, in my belief, that's just my opinion. Now, a person that I wanted to mention on my channel, which commented on the video that I did for the intro for the Kaguya and Isshiki, is basically rivals, instead of like one is like weaker than the other after her gaining the God tree. So the person's name is Jackson Brawly. If I'm pronouncing it right, then that's good. I just want to give him a shout out because he pointed out some interesting things that I wanted to add into the video, but definitely give him a shout out. He's probably new creating his YouTube channel, so please guys, give him a shout out, because that kind of helped me a lot, because you know sometimes I get confused with the data books of Naruto. But let's get right into the video. So now we know that Kaguya came to Earth. From what we have heard from the Boruto standpoint, that she came with a partner, which is Isshiki Otsutsuki. Now the confusion that I started getting in between was that I know that Kaguya was not a full flushed out character, but let's not forget that she was introduced at the last minute of the original Shippuden series. And another thing that I wanted to, you know, started collecting information around, and I started, you know, trying to connect to the dots. So one of the information that I wanted to put out is that my thoughts is that when Kaguya came down with, I guess, Isshiki, before she came down with the tree, or did she came down without the tree at first, I believe that Kaguya in her regular form, without having like the, you know, the power up, she was much weaker than Momoshiki, as well as Kenshiki, as well as, you know, Isshiki himself. You know, that was probably the whole reason why she wanted to create the army in the first place, before giving birth to, you know, her children, which is Hamura and Hagoromo. But from what we have started to learn in the Naruto Boruto series, was that when she came down, before she predates the tree, I would say, because she came down with a partner. So I guess they came down at first to see if the earth was suited to be harvest to a fruit. Now another thing was that normally they say that in order for a Nosutsuki to like obtain, you know, absolute power, the tree has to either get the nutrients from the earth, or from what we learned, the karma mark is something for them to resurrect themselves in, right? So one thing I started predicting was that the tree that came down before Kaguya got there, it was probably another Otsutsuki that either Kaguya or Isshiki sacrificed in order to get the tree to be at Earth in the first place. And then I think they came back to see if the tree started blooming, and if the tree wasn't flourishing, they would have sacrificed Kaguya instead to boost up the tree to be even stronger. And I think that's what made Kaguya turn on Isshiki, because she didn't want to be another sacrifice, because I think they already sacrificed Inosuke before. And I think that will play a role in the future of Boruto series, because one thing I'm gonna mention close to the end of the episode, that a panel of the manga, that when they were discovering Isshiki as well as Momoshiki and some of those tablets. Now another thing, people would say that Momoshiki is stronger than Kaguya because he could absorb and reflect energy, but one thing that we've learned that one weakness that Momoshiki has is they have to fight him mostly in taijutsu in order for him to get defeated. You know, if he doesn't absorb things that he can absorb, he's basically kind of like useless. But whereas in Kaguya's term, we could see that the only problem she had, if she would have been fleshed out more and have more personality, she could have been definitely one of the strongest characters that basically ever lived. Because let's put things to perspective also. After Mother obtained certain part of power, you could have said that Zetsu is basically a downgraded form of the Karma Seal. But the Karma Seal that Kaguya created, basically she breathed life into her Karma Seal, thus us creating Zetsu, right? And that's the thing that I think Zetsu is a Karma Seal, and over time he took information in and then latched himself onto Mother, thus creating and reviving Kaguya. You know, if you saw that perfectly, you know, Zetsu became like this pit of like goo to consume Mother in order for him to give like the image or the replacement of, you know, it's just like the reanimation jutsu. If you think of the Karma Seal, it's very similar to like the reanimation jutsu, because you're taking the former shell or the former form of the person that has died and they encased it with like dust, right? If you think of the scientific ninja tools and how certain people could able to, you know, manipulate that, and how when you think of how the Karma Seal works, it's using your body and you modifying you know, modification, and you know, is something that we have seen before, and I'm gonna tell you guys why. Remember how when the Rinnegan was introduced and how we saw Pain use the 6 paths, and how each 6 path had a different ability, and one of the Pains, which was the Asura path, and his ability was basically he could change any part of his body into weapons, right? He ended up having 3 faces because of the 6 path thing that he had. And then later on in the war, we saw that Nagato could like transform his hand into like a mechanical technology. So technology is a form of the Karma Seal, if you think about it. So if you think of how Nagato could, you know, modify his body to create weapons, the Karma Seal is very similar in how Kawaki used it when we first saw him. Like his body became like the weapon form of his choosing. It's almost like liquid technology where the form is very fluid. You could just create any form. So getting to the point is that I believe the Karma Seal was something that was a concept that was introduced before, and that now that they're expanding it, you know, it could even be at first I even thought it was a tie-in between the Byakuyo Seal that Tsunade Sakura and Mito Uzumaki had, you know. But if we start looking at, you know, Kaguya and how she got there and what are the abilities that she have done and owned, we're gonna talk more about that. So let's continue. So another thing that I wanted to point out as we continue the video of my, I would say, a haha moment was that remember the fight between Kaguya when as she started changing the dimensions, you know, we saw that this castle, and then there was like a speck of a person that was standing near the castle, and they never, you know, there's some points in Naruto that they never bring up again until now. Like they started like plugging the patches, that missing things. So for one, we know that Kaguya's abilities is basically portal and dimensional manipulation, as well as she also has the Kekemora, which is one or more elements that is merged to create like a atomic truth seeker orb where she was gonna recreate new dimensions. So after gaining that ability from the god fruit tree, she started getting more energy. And if you could even think about it, when Obito re-released the 10 tails and started creating the final form of the god tree, you could have said that he sacrificed a part of himself in order for him to create the god tree, in order for Kaguya to basically consume that, right? So when Mother absorbed the whole god tree, it was like consuming the fruit as well, which made him had the the Shomu Sharingan that Kaguya has, right? The Rene Sharingan. So when you think about that, and you think about the introduction to Isshiki and how powerful he was currently, and if you think about it, if Kaguya is so weak as everybody says she is, why Naruto Sasuke could have just killed her? Since they had the power to steal her, I guess they could have killed her, right? And that's another thing. Even the Sasuke and Naruto that are in now, if Sasuke and Naruto had like a better, I would say, or Kaguya had a better introduction into her character, I have no doubt that no one would have been able to stop her. And another thing that people would say that Momoshiki was able to, no, I feel as if Kaguya was scared of them because they came to Earth, but the moment she obtained and ate the god fruit, Kaguya became unstoppable. The fact that they had to seal her away says a lot, because that's another thing. If you're able to be so strong that you can't be killed, and I think she's the only Otsutsuki that we have seen that hasn't absorbed like another god fruit tree, but just chakra. And that's another thing, she is probably the only immortal Otsutsuki, because from what we have heard in the manga as well as some data facts, is that Otsutsukis would harvest the fruits in order for them to live longer. The only fruit that Kaguya ever ate was just one, and then her sons were able to steal her away to turn her to the moon. Now if you think about that, and the vessels that gave her the ability, so we already know Madara ended up awakening his real own Rinnegan by really manifesting it. We know that because of Zetsu, which is a former karma seal for Kaguya, she ended up making Zetsu trick Madara to think that Madara was someone that created Black Zetsu, just for him to get implanted. If you think about it, Kaguya implanted the seed of herself already since Madara decided to not lose to Hashirama, right? So if you think about it to that standpoint, Madara slowly but surely was becoming an Otsutsuki, and eventually by gaining the God Fruit Tree, when he absorbed it, he became full Otsutsuki, compared to what Obito was when he just only had like the 10 tails inside of them. Madara got a boost way before he became the Sage of Sixth Path Madara. So even if you think about the thing now, comparing Kaguya with Jigen, or Isshiki as we call it, I still think that they're not no weaker than each other. I believe that at a point Isshiki was much stronger, but I feel as Kaguya obtained the God Fruit Tree, she closed the gap between them two. If you think about it, Kaguya and Isshiki came together, right? And if you look at the clothes that they both wear when they are like in their final look or final form, they're the only Otsutsukis to wear that royalty color of purple and gold on their robes, whereas Momoshiki and Kenshiki don't have that. So I just want people to understand where I'm getting with this. Even the 10 tails that they both had, like the 10 tails that came before was much bigger compared to the 10 tails that Jigen absorbed for Isshiki, because the 10 tails that we had, I feel as if this 10 tails that we had in the war, that 10 tails was the very first Otsutsuki that came to Earth besides Kaguya and Isshiki. And I'm gonna tell you that Momoshiki and Kaguya and Isshiki were not the first people that stepped into the Earth. The 2 stone tablet that the Sasuke realized at the end of not only the animated episode but as well as the manga, we might get more of those backstories later on in the time skip as well as future if they want to continue this. Because some of the fill-ins that I'm trying to do is that the 2 Otsutsukis that were basically carved off, I feel as if those Otsutsukis were the ones that were sacrificed to, like, one of them became the Jubi that we saw in the Boruto, and then the other one became a version of the god fruit tree that Kaguya came down with. I think Kaguya was like his or her boss, and then Isshiki was above them too. But the fact that Kaguya absorbed him and then, you know, try to aim or kill Isshiki, that shows that, you know, Isshiki was not just powerful, but that he was above Kaguya. But by the time Kaguya absorbed the god fruit tree and, you know, got to the, I would say, the same level as him, they now rival each other in strength, but not in comeback wise, you know. See, we could put that into 2 perspectives. The weakness that Momoshiki had was taijutsu is some of his weakness, right? As well as sage jutsu, right? But if you think about it, the drawback that every Otsutsuki have is that they may have all the power, but it's like they're like a Jinchuriki. Like, they will need a host in order for them to really direct their power, right? So when you think about what I'm saying, I feel as if the Jubi that we are seeing now was one of the Otsutsukis that was in the carved stone tablet, right? That was scraped off. And then the second one was probably another Otsutsuki that became the god tree from the beginning. And I think the main reason why Kaguya betrayed Isshiki was that he was planning to do a double sacrifice. He was planning to sacrifice Kaguya because I think she had probably the second strongest chakra out of the group. So he wanted to sacrifice her as well as those 2 Otsutsukis that the tablet has been carved off. So together to make a stronger god fruit tree, right? But Kaguya ended up betraying him. So that's why we saw that he used a new vessel which was named Jigen in order for him to live on, to replicate or, you know, rejuvenate his powers. But if you think about it, out of all of the Otsutskis, they're the only 2 that has that robe color on them, like that golden and purple color on them, you know. And like I told you guys before, I feel as if Kaguya and Isshiki were not the first Otsutskis to visit the planet. I feel as if the person that mostly visited the planet were those 2 Otsutskis that their face or their symbol were carved off. And I feel as if this could be a big plot twist to explain that how Kaguya ended up betraying Isshiki in the first place, because that would have been a double sacrifice. Now another thing I wanted to talk about was the dojutsu that Isshiki has. What if I tell you guys that we've seen this eyes before, but not with the wheel pattern? What I mean by that is Zetsu. When you look at Zetsu's eyes, you saw that his ability, one of his abilities is to just record, right? So that's one of his abilities, to record and to rewind everything that he has saw. So what I'm thinking is, what if Isshiki's full abilities is to rewind certain things and shrink certain things, right? His eyes is one of his eyes is the only one that has that. And if you think about how Zetsu eyes were, it was like a Byakugan, but it was just yellow, right? So when you think about those two things merging together, Isshiki could just shrink things, as well as basically re-shrink himself, as well as shrink matter things. But he can't shrink things that are like naturally he can't get attacked or attack things that are naturally, right? So if we saw the fight between him and Kachin Kojin, right, he used natural flames which he couldn't absorb, as well as couldn't dodge. So that's why we saw Isshiki emerge, right? So another thing we could also say, look at, out of all the ones that has died, only Kaguya has been sealed away, which I don't know why they would say Zetsu's dead. Zetsu was sealed along with Kaguya for him to not, you know, redo the whole hatred history again. You know, the two sons are basically reincarnation, and Kaguya is the only Isshiki alive, as well as Toneri, that are either Toneri sealed on the moon and Kaguya is sealed in her own dimension, becoming a moon, right? And I don't think no one has the ability to go where she is, even if you have the dimensional energy. So what I meant by, you know, the different eyes, I feel as if Zetsu has the eyes that Isshiki has, but probably different abilities. Because Zetsu could just record things, which is, I think it's a lighter version of the dojutsu that Isshiki has, right? Because it's just similar. When you think of the Byakugan, you know that it's going to be very similar to the Tensei gun. Sharingan transforms to the Rinnegan, right? So if we start getting those patterns, even the Seiregun that Ida has in the manga, spoiler, right, is very similar to like Isshiki eye level, with the whole Seiregun thing that's going on, right? It has like this crescent moon, and it very, you know, remind me of Isshiki. And like I said, like the Rinnegan with the whole technology thing that it had, has a lot, I feel, to do with, you know, the beginning as well as the start of how, you know, we could start connecting the dots from that point on. Because, you know, Rinnegan has the ability to pull things or, you know, repulse things, and we already know that. But I'm telling you guys that the eye that Isshiki has, I feel as if he could do something similar to that, because we even saw in the you know, anime, as well as probably in the manga, you know, when the anime flushed it out, we saw that Isshiki could make like a Chibaku like Tensei thing with all his rods, and just shoots everything down, you know, to the ground. So that could be another factor that I feel as if his eye technique is a combination between Rinnegan things, and as well as, like I said, the shrinking things where he could record, right? So that's another thing. When we saw Jigen and the table was just destroyed and he just brought out, it's the technique that's remembering how the form of the object looks like, and then it re-put the object back, and, you know, out of nowhere, right? So yeah, that's the theory I have in my head, that maybe in the future of the Boruto series, and I would love them to do that, I would love them to flush out Kaguya and give us a better backstory, as well as, like I said, to better explain to us that, based on how I'm looking at both of them, Isshiki and Kaguya, they're not, before she was weaker, but now I feel as if they're almost equal in power, you know. And to think about it, Kaguya had like a vessel which she used Madara to emerge out of him, right? By absorbing the God tree, he was able to do that. But what if I also tell you guys that, due to the whole thing, what if it was Hagoromo as well as Hamura, Isshiki basically taught them how to use the, you know, the Chibaku Tensei, because he probably have a version of that as well, or he knew that Kaguya was planning to rule the world. Because if Kaguya put everybody in the infinite Tsutsumi, I would have thought that, you know, Kaguya or Isshiki would have known, you know, that was happening, since they both were at the same time, you know. And that's another thing, they didn't give us the span of how long that Isshiki got betrayed and then Kaguya came by herself again to harvest or look after the god tree until the god tree gets enough nutrients to really bloom. Because I keep telling you, since they say you have to sacrifice yourself in order for the tree to grow faster, who did Kaguya sacrifice besides the humans? Because their life force was not that strong to even, you know, give chakra at that point, right? Humans didn't have chakra when Kaguya started giving them to the tree. It's when after she got defeated, people started harnessing chakra, right? So my theory on this, like I told you guys, is the stone tablets that we've been seeing that they haven't shown us. I think those two things are going to play a big factor into the development of more of the Naruto world. Because I don't really think that Kaguya came down by, and even if you look at how they place each of the tablets, you see that Kaguya's is way up with Isshiki. Momoshiki, it looks like it's like at second, and then those two ones that are like on the near left or right side, they've been like complete. It's like somebody was trying to erase their existence. And I feel as if one of them became the Ten Tails, the other one became the god tree that Kaguya absorbed, and that's how we saw Kaguya got the power up, because she sacrificed in Satsuki before, and she was scared that Isshiki was using her to get another sacrifice. So that is my theory, guys. Like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys soon for American Horror Story.